Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, finally embarking upon the last leg of the Eurovision 2020 reviews. Never mind what's going on in the world at the moment, I will make this work whether it kills me or not. Especially if it doesn't, now that I realise how I worded that. So, today, I know how it looks, but no, I assure you this is the flag of Denmark, and not some sort of really funky Latvia that's just... There you go, I've pretty much covered the vertical stripe, so now it just looks like a really skinny Latvia. I'm running out of humour here, and I need to save some for next year. Anyway, so yes, Denmark. After winning a curious national final, which I feel like... I don't know if you have game shows in Denmark. I feel like you do, because I know there's a Danish version of the dating show Take Me Out called Dagens Mond, except Danish words aren't pronounced the way they're spelled for whatever reason, but whatever. I feel like this year's Dansk Melodi Grand Prix will probably end up being the answer to a quiz show question, is the bottom line I'm getting to. Why was it weird and interesting? Because it was a live show that didn't have an audience despite being in a massive arena, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Anyway, the song that was chosen, when all was said and done, if I could finally get to the point, is Ben and Tanne, or Benjamin Rosenbaum and Tanne Amanda Balcells, play the cello. And the song is called Yes. Sometimes stylized as YES in block capitals, but I'm just going to leave it as yes, because otherwise it looks a bit on the aggressive side. It's fully in English, which is a bit of a shame after last year's sample platter of languages from Denmark, but hey, we can't all be Leonora. So music and lyrics this time by Emil Lay, Jimmy Jansen, and Linnea Dib. I had a feeling there would be a familiar name in there somewhere, but hey, it's just one of the Debs this time rather than the whole Deb team. I'm trying to be funny. This is why I shouldn't record when I don't have enough energy. Anyway, let's just get on with the review, because I have rambled more than enough at this point. So, Denmark. I want to say that this is a cute, sweet little song about puppy love, and really, hearing that it was going to represent Denmark, of all countries, doesn't surprise me. This sounds right at home alongside their gallery of previous entrants, especially judging by recent years, or really judging by the last 20 years, which is the Denmark that I grew up being familiar with, because I started watching in 2007. But still though, there is something severely lacking in this song. I'm just gonna be upfront about that, but I can't quite place what that lack is. It's just, the song really does just not leave an impression on me whatsoever. It just turns up, happens for 3 minutes, and then goes again. And I feel like I'm being unnecessarily harsh in saying that. Songs shouldn't live and die by how wacky or out there they are. They can make it work, but they don't have to. But that isn't the problem with this one. I think my issue with it is that it just feels false to me. Like, I'm too aware that I'm watching a performance rather than seeing into Ben and Tanne's shared heart and soul, so to speak. That doesn't mean that the song is totally void of charm, of course, and you're perfectly within your rights to like it. I've seen people commenting under the music video calling it a masterpiece, and if you feel that way, fair play to you. I just don't feel it personally. To my ears, it's kind of like the song Up by Olly Murs featuring Demi Lovato, except this time around it's much more diluted. It lacks charm and sincerity in comparison, but still, I will take a closer look at its positive aspects, because I'm not going to deny that it has any. Dang! Right, putting aside the obvious fact that it would be so easy to recut the song so say yes, say yes, say yes comes out as say yes, yes. Yeah, putting that to one side for hopefully forever, let's start with the self-evident and then sort of work inwards from there. The musical arrangement of this song is indisputably solid. I fully expect that it could hold its own on a stage of more or less any size, as well as on the radio without any visuals whatsoever. And it's accessible to people from all musical backgrounds. It might not necessarily appeal to people from all musical backgrounds, but there's nothing prohibitive about its arrangement, which works in its favour because it's intended to be a simple enough story. Probably the strongest aspect of that, from a cold and clinical point of view, is the main central hook, the aforementioned say yes, yes. So say what you will about the song's relative safety, as with Finland, but the loudness, the melody, the repetition, every facet of that hook serves to make it extremely memorable. And its simplicity not only makes it easy to sing along with regardless of whether you speak English or not, it also makes it fairly easy to translate into your own language, whether that's DC, or Zag ya, Diwi, or Hi to you. Okay, maybe it doesn't fit the rhythm in every language, but still. Now, taking that same approach but thinking emotionally rather than cold, hard logically, the strongest aspect of the composition is its atmosphere, its brain feel, as it were. The song has a genuinely sweet sentiment to all of it, and that permeates the music on every possible level. If you're open to vibing with the song on an emotional level, you'll come away from it with a severe case of the warm fuzzies. And for what the lyrics speak of, that is exactly what they're going for, so kudos to that. That makes it a success story in that regard. I can't dispute that. And finally, tying that lyrical aspect back into what I was saying earlier about the song's adaptability for various platforms, I often praise Eurovision entries that I view as being able to musically fill the arena. I'm not sure if anyone necessarily understands what I mean by that, but I feel like if you heard the effect in person, you'd be able to tell which songs can and can't fill the arena. So just go with me here. This song achieves that on both its musical front and its vocal front, so in that regard it is the complete package in terms of commanding attention and looking good. It's especially good because the say yes part requires a good amount of energy, and positive energy at that. Sweet songs like this are no stranger to getting lost on the Eurovision stage. See for reference, amongst others, Switzerland 2011. Absolute tragedy that came last, but time and place. I think that this would have had the presence to stand out against that effect. Alas, we'll never know for sure. Still, not everyone is going to love this song. I certainly don't. Probably my biggest issue with it is its repetition factor. I can live with the say yes part recurring as much as it does. That's fine. That works as the memorable hook of the song. We can write that off as poetic license. Everything around it repeating so much, though, is where I draw the line. The refrain here suffers for exactly the same reason that Finland's doesn't. If you're going to sing the lyrics twice each time the refrain comes around, 9 times out of 10, you would be better off having 2 separate verses to your refrain instead. So, I think my heart is beating me to death, I've got an arrow through my chest. Yeah, that's fine. Do that once, then have a second set of lines that follow the same pattern, instead of repeating the same imagery over and over again, because it kind of beats it to death. Pun not intended, it's more of an illusion rather than a pun. And as things stand, the fact that the refrain repeats itself so much means that the otherwise pretty clever lyrics in there, especially the "my heart is beating me to death" part, it very rapidly loses all meaning and goes from ingenious to irritating in a hurry. It stops sounding romantic and starts sounding like a legitimate cry for medical help. We hear it so much that we lose that sense of poetic license and start thinking, hang on a minute, I'm going to think about the literal meaning of this line because you won't shut up about it. Furthermore, live at the national final, sorry Tanne, but I just cannot believe that performance. I know I've been going on about that a lot this year, but it can make or break a performance, like in this case. Now Ben, sure, I could believe that he makes this sort of music on the regular, but Tanne's side the performance feels like exactly that, just a performance. I don't truly believe that she has any chemistry with Ben whatsoever, which makes the entire song nothing but lip service from start to finish. And for something so otherwise heartfelt, yeah, that pretty much kills it stone dead for me. I really want to say that they make a dynamic couple like they sing about being, but if they always perform like that, then I'm afraid I can't say that they do. And so, perhaps fueled by that, I find myself considering this one to be an offensively tepid song. It's by no means as big of a deal as I felt towards Austria's disaster of an entry in 2015, but it's still incredibly beige, all things considered. Though the repeated hook is effective in isolation, the repetition surrounding it really drags it down, and the rest of the song sort of folds in on itself around it. It's so bland that I forget that I'm listening to it when I'm listening to it. And I recognise that's kind of a shame. I do want to like this one. I do like cute songs like this, but in this case, I'm gonna be saying no, Denmark. Now, to assign some numbers to this song, some people aren't going to like this, but if you didn't see that 4 out of 10 coming after what I've said, that is kind of on you. The thing is, I recognise that this is a sweet song that is fun enough, and in terms of pure technique, it's written and performed well enough, but it just slides right off me without leaving any impression whatsoever. It's written well, but not engagingly. It's performed accurately, but not sincerely. Do you see where I'm going with this? It's a song that relies on heart, but doesn't have much heart to give, as far as I can feel. Or, to put it in much less fluffy terms, it's a song that I almost like, but when all's said and done, I feel no inclination whatsoever to come back and listen to it of my own free will. For what it's worth, though, I recognise that that is at least a bit of a shame, and I am missing out by not giving this song another chance. On the technical side, I'll resolve that with 7 out of 10, I think, to capture that juxtaposition of being good on paper and poor in practice. As I said, there is merit in its raw musical arrangement, and the fact that it's performed with at least enough conviction so as to sound at home on a stage of any size, as opposed to being lost on stage, that's all great, that's all good stuff, but I can't go any higher than 7 because of a few major flaws that ruin the experience for me. For one, it's supposed to be a heartfelt story, but I feel none of that from how it was performed live. For another, it may be solidly composed, but especially lyrically, it repeats itself too much, and then repeats its own repetition on top of that, killing to death any positive qualities I might otherwise find in the lyrics. This is the epitome of painfully close to being good, and I don't like that I'm having to be so seemingly harsh towards what is at least a solid effort. After all, it won a national final, so it can't be completely empty of appeal, right? And speaking of, props where credit is due, I'll say Denmark is in Blue Arrow territory in terms of progress. They held their national final format almost as normal, same high standards of songs, staging, viewer interest, ethos, production values, etc. Really, the only difference between this year and any other year is that there was literally no audience in the live show itself. Full-size arena, full-scale everything, but no audience, which was kind of funny to watch, but also sad. But the fact that the broadcaster was still able to go ahead and produce a show to the same standard as always, whilst working around the limitation of literally not being allowed to have an audience, because if for whatever reason you're watching this video several years into the future and somehow the current global health crisis has fallen out of public memory, it was because of the current public health crisis. Google it if you still have Google in the future. But anyway, it's commendable that the Danish broadcaster was able to pull something together despite everything else that was going on. So Denmark's attitude is certainly in the right place for the time being. If anything, I expect this year's cancellation just means they'll come back next year in even fuller force, with that self-reassurance that they're capable of taking on pretty much any organisational challenge life throws at them on the road to finding their next Eurovision entry. But, putting the future to one side for the moment, would this song this year have qualified if the show was happening? This is yet another time this year where I can say it was drawn into semi-final 2, so that boosts its chances by quite a bit. If this were in semi-final 1, I would have been so much less optimistic, but it's in semi-final 2. It's in risky territory as opposed to don't get your hopes up. In its favour, it was in the much more open playing field of the two semis, as I said, and it was sweet enough to appeal to some people, as it did in the national final, and the people who really like the song, and that's fine, that's great. So, being as it is, along the lines of Denmark's usual fare, it could well have qualified with minimal difficulty. Working against it, on the other hand, are the facts that the countries most likely to appreciate the offering, that is, Germany, the Netherlands, Sweden, and Norway, and possibly a few others, were all drawn to vote in the other semi-final, so it's kind of starting off at a disadvantage right out of the gate. And on top of that, besides what I was saying about the song's engagement factors, or lack thereof, depending on who you are, there are legitimate people out there who write songs like this off for being too straight. Seriously, Twitter? Really? Those people exist, apparently. Still, we can take some solace in the fact that those toxic hyper-stans are far from representative of the actual majority when it comes to Eurovision fans and Eurovision voters. So there's that. Either way, I would conclude that a spot in the final was far from a guaranteed thing for Denmark this year, but it was also far from impossible. But that's just me. What do you think, you lovely people? As always, check the iCard, use the comments, use the boost to get through. Let me know how you felt about this song. Would it have qualified in your opinion? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Share your thoughts with me. Am I completely off base here? Anyway, at this point, I would wish Ben and Tanne good luck, but yeah, this year isn't happening, so good luck preparing your next entry, Denmark. Hopefully this has been a learning experience for everyone involved, and good on you for hosting a national final despite the constraints. I look forward to seeing what you do with this newfound experience next year.